Hey everyone, I'm Charting Man Dan of the Chart Guys. I've been trading cannabis stocks for the last 13 years. We're going to very briefly touch on some fundamentals, but mostly be looking at technical charts and our current setups after another bullish week and see where we stand bigger picture as we head into the new year. All right, so let's start off with the fundamentals. So we've got an article here that I'm going to post in the link, the comments, whatever, from Shane Pennington here. And honestly, just full disclosure, as you know, I'm a technical trader. I'm aware of the fundamentals, so what I do is I read this article and say, okay, you know, we have information that the HHS recommended to the DEA that we're going to Schedule 3, that we should go to Schedule 3. But nobody's seen it. Nobody's seen that recommendation. And so a Freedom of Information Act was filed, and they released this 250-page document that is mostly blank, and it's redacted. And so we're just looking for information. Was this indeed a recommendation made to the DEA? And so this is an article breaking it down. But honestly, I read these points and like, all right, I'm good. Like, I've got enough information. I'm sure it's nice and in-depth. If you want that information, read it all. But honestly, it just doesn't matter for me. It's just price and waiting for the DEA to actually give concrete news. There's nothing, you know, on the state level, a lot of concrete things have happened in this sector. On a federal level, zero concrete things have happened in this sector to meaningfully move the price. And so that's what I have to see, because right now I have my long-term position from saying I think the bottom's in because of the amount of volume that we saw on the HHS news initially. And other than that, I will only go aggressive in this sector when there is a catalyst for momentum, just like the HHS. You know, if we get the headline dropping, and what I'm starting to say to everybody that doesn't even follow this sector, have a game plan. Because if this headline drops, there's going to be easy money to be made, even if it's just for, you know, if you're just looking for a few day hold on that momentum. And so, again, I will go aggressive and market buy if that official news hits. But in the meantime, we're still watching our 2-week time frames. If those of you have been paying attention to these videos over the couple of weeks here, talking about how the 2-week time frame is where the clarity is at. And in the absence of news, I'm going to be watching for an equilibrium, which is the most common pattern in trading, where you've got a big move in both directions, and then you just look for the range to tighten up. So I am looking for a weekly lower high compared to 988 as the most likely scenario in the absence of news. And then I'm going to look for a higher low compared to 492 as the most likely scenario from there. I've also talked about the correlation to IWM and the impact that has had. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. MSOS, so we had the battle with $7. Remember on the way down, there was a battle with 7. And again, just rewinding back in time to the videos I was making back then, I was looking for a long here, and I was entering on the breaks of $7 that had no follow through. I then had a nice swing position. We got the bull break. I sold partial into that move, and then I was very surprised by the magnitude of the bear smackdown. And I stopped out break even. I sell partial in profit. I set a stop under the low. I stopped out. So, all right, no big deal. Stopping out is A-okay. And then the bears followed through in a massive way. So we then recently started battling $7 again. Previous support, now resistance. You can just see the zone where we were holding it as support, and now it's resistance. That's, you know, technical analysis and trading 101. Previous support becomes resistance. Previous resistance becomes support. And so now we've turned that level into support with a break of 703. And we had a nice heads up. There are clues that you can get from looking at peers in this sector. What do I mean by that? The day that MSOS broke 703, I was live streaming on the morning for Chart Guys members, and I was saying, you know, we're watching TLRY for a break of 191, and this inverse daily head and shoulders pattern. It's a top watch to start the week. And so we got the bull break of 191 on Monday and a big green day, and CGC was following along. And so just going back to that day, the bull break took place from 191 right away, and we got the follow through. You know, the bull break was in the first 5 minutes, and then we got follow through after 10 a.m. And so I was live streaming saying, all right, we're getting these bull breaks. Watch MSOS. MSOS is a potential laggard. If it breaks 703, then we're looking for, you know, a tight range to be a breaking bull, obviously. And so again, just looking back at how much time there was as a difference. So again, the bull break happened in the first 5 minutes on those names, and then the bull break followed through just after 10 a.m. So here's MSOS, didn't get its bull break until after 10:15, and then it was just straight up. Why did we go straight up? Pent up. Just imagine shaking up a soda can. when you are that tight, we know a break in volatility is coming. The volume drops off, the range tightens, and then we look for that break. And so, beautiful follow through. Couldn't ask for better follow through. Why did we follow through like that? Because bears have been shorting against 703 and succeeding for an entire 2 weeks. Short at 695, cover at 680. And you could do that time and time and time again. Eventually, it doesn't work. And everybody that shorted that level stops out. And bulls also buy the break of that resistance. Why did we go up all the way to 755? Because there's no resistance between 703 and 766. That's the next main level. And so it's very easy for the bulls to move through that level. But look where we've topped out. 769, 768, 768 the last 3 days. It's not a coincidence. We're topping out because that's the next major level that everybody's looking at. That is where we topped out and got smacked down, and the bears are doing what they can to defend that level because after 66, there's very little resistance again until 8 psychological and 880. We did start daily consolidation to end this last week. The bulls really want to hold $7 on any back test. Technically speaking, anything above 663 will be a daily higher low, and we want to see those bulls hold that $7 level. So hourly downtrend is currently our guide, and we need to see the bulls regain an hourly uptrend if we're going to say that a daily higher low is shaping up. I'm looking for a loss of the daily uptrend to be the first indication, the first baby step towards a potential 2-week lower high being set. One thing that the bulls have going for them is broader market strength. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are potential monthly cup and handle patterns that are looking for all-time highs, and they're absolutely in play, both of them. So that's helping sentiment. Cryptocurrency names are going wild over the last 2 months, and again, it's just a risk-on environment. Specifically, for crypto, it's been the last 2 months. Stocks, it's been the last 5 weeks. The end of November, the end of October is when it started kicking on here. But that's when IWM bottomed. And again, for me, I'm using IWM as a benchmark for this sector because IWM is the highest risk, highest reward stock names, high growth names, lower cap. And again, I highlighted in the last video how they both bottomed out at the same time. They're both seeing very similar moves. And again, you look at IWM, huge day on Monday. Nope, huge day on Friday for the bulls. A Friday ago, not this past one. And on that day, MSOS didn't do much. But why didn't it do much? Well, there was still resistance there. We were still under resistance. And then we got a little bit more follow through on IWM the next day, a little bit more green. And that's the day that MSOS followed through. So it was almost like a 1 day behind. And again, just very similar charts. They're not tick for tick. They're not going to do the same thing. There's not a strong enough correlation between automated trading, bots, and algos to do the same thing on the 5-minute time frame. For me, it's a rough gauge of sentiment. We can see IWM has set a higher low every single week after bottoming the October 23rd candle. It's a higher low every single week for 6 weeks. MSOS bottomed, I guess just a little bit lower from the same candle. But again, same thing, higher low every single week for 6 weeks. That's what I mean by correlation. It's a bit more zoomed out in terms of watching the relationship. So it's, you're going to have times where IWM is up 0.5% and MSOS is down 2% and vice versa. But just from a bigger picture standpoint, the bottom in IWM and the strength in the broader market is absolutely a major factor for why MSOS bottomed. And a lot of people in this sector keep saying, somebody knows something. And I keep looking at IWM and just saying, we're doing that. We're doing the same thing. And IIPR is doing it as well. Again, look at IIPR. It's not the same thing, but we bottomed right around the same time, and it's been bulls since then. And so right now, IIPR is a daily cup and handle where we've got 87.81 resistance. We failed that level at 87.32. Then we bull flagged, and now this is the bull flag confirming. So let's see next week if we can follow through over this level, because after the 87s, really after 89.11, look at all this gap. This is the goal for the bulls. Get in that gap fill into the 90s to follow through with that cup and handle like pattern. But we can say IIPR has now hit the highest price just this past Friday, the highest price in 10 months, which is obviously significant. So keep an eye on IIPR. And again, some people look at this and say, well, does this mean SAFE has no chance? Because wouldn't SAFE be bearish this business model, for me, again, it's just IWM. It's just IWM giving strength to growth names and some confidence returning in the names that have been extremely beat up. Again, you look at MSOS on the weekly time or the monthly time frame, and we know it's been all bears, and we can find other names that have been this weak that are putting in reversals. Coin, again, crypto name, but Coin just absolutely trashed. If I cover this up and I told you that was a cannabis stock, you'd probably believe me. Wow, we dropped 80 whatever percent. And then it bottoms out, it builds a base, and it's reversing its momentum. So that's what the cannabis sector bulls are hoping for. We know if we get a catalyst for, DEA, whatever, then the party gets going. And MSOS can confirm its first monthly uptrend in the history of the ETF if we can get over 988. But even without a headline, as long as the broader market is strong, and if we're going to all-time highs, this sector will benefit from that sentiment. Individual names. So again, nothing's really standing out to me as being different. We know GTBIF is one of the strongest. We know CRLBF is one of the weakness. If you want to compare individual names, there's two ways to do it. Retracement size, where I could say, okay, this is where the HHS move topped out. That's our low. How much have we recovered? GTBIF has recovered, 90 to 95%. That's one way to compare. Another one, how far until we break resistance? GTBIF needs 9%. All right, how does that compare to CLRBF? Wow, that looks very different. GTBIF 90% plus, CRLBF 55%. Not even close. All right, well, what about percentages? How does that differ? 9% for GTBIF, 54% for CRLBF. Again, they're just glaringly very different setups. One is very much stronger than the other. So in that setup, GTBIF can break resistance long before MSOS does on that weekly time frame. And other names can set a lower high and tighten up, as I talked about. So just be aware that individual names can obviously do different things, but I am still anticipating that MSOS will tighten up in the absence of news. Unless broader market bulls go blue sky breakout, FOMO mode, 10% follow through, then, bulls can really get going. Canadian names. So CGC, again, compare names. Should I be long CGC or TLRY? Well, this week, comparing the two has been screaming CGC is much stronger. All week. CGC divided by TLRY. If this chart's going up, it means CGC is stronger. 5 days of just significantly outperforming TLRY. So you want to be paying attention to this because, if you long the CGC resistance break of 67 cents, you're ending the week extremely strong. If you long TLRY resistance break of 191, you're up a penny. It's a very different standpoint. It's a little harder to recognize in advance, but we need to be able to check in on these things while we're in positions and make decisions based on the information of what the market is telling us. And all week it was a consistent CGC is stronger than TLRY. So TLRY, anything under 209 is just a daily lower high. We're still just, sideways, trying to put in a longer term bottom. It's the same 2-week chart. It's just a bit of a different setup where we've got our low, high, higher, low, and we've got all the space in the world for a lower high. If I'm 59% sure that MSOS is going to give us a 2-week lower high, I'm 79% sure, 89% sure that TLRY is going to give us a 2-week lower high because the resistance is so much further away. And so even though CGC is clearly bullish comparatively, 82 cents is resistance, followed by, we got some little levels there, but the next major level is 1 psychological. But again, go to the 2-week time frame here. It's the same thing. It's a tightening range. Anything under 192 is a 2-week lower high. That's well over 100% away, but it's just clearly stronger. And again, these names are for trading as far as I'm concerned. And there's opportunity there. I mean, CGC, this was an inverse head and shoulders in the bull break of 615 was the bull break. And you saw the volume behind that bull break. And then, again, obviously the follow through. So keep an eye on that chart. CGC divided by TLRY. If it keeps going up, then CGC is the place to be. So we're going to test that high of 82 cents first thing this coming week to see if the bulls can keep that control. Psychedelic sector, quick check in here, MNMD. And again, I talk about these names sometimes in our broader market videos when I'm just doing the broader market analysis of the S&P 500 every day. I talked about a long entry I made on MNMD for this daily cup and handle and got way more follow through than could have hoped for. It was ideal. So entry was something like 303 and scaled out some in the 320s, some more in the 340s or 350s. And I now have a risk-free position, a third of a remaining position, and I can just stick my stop essentially down at the low. And I either stop out break even if we hit new all-time lows, or we're putting in a longer-term bottom and can let it play out. But big red dump day on Thursday. This had news written all over it, but I didn't see any news. Just high volume free fall to pull back that hard. And so again, that's why we have to be taking profit into these moves that are in longer term downtrends to protect against an 11% drop day. But overall, we will need a weekly trend change. And that's why I was taking profit, because my mindset was, okay, there's a daily bullish setup, but I know we will eventually have to confirm a weekly higher low and higher high if this is going to be a longer term move. And so that weekly consolidation is potentially shaping up now. CMPS is still struggling to get over the 650s here. We broke it Friday, but couldn't close above it. So very clear, again, previous support, now acting as resistance. So high volume, trying to get in a longer term bottom, but again, a lot of work to do for any kind of longer term bottom to be confident. ATAI, I don't even watch anymore. It's just a slow grind penny stock coming off all-time lows. CYBN is losing its mojo. It's just a penny stock that's in a slow grind down, and it's testing the recent low. If 39 breaks, just further monthly consolidation. I personally have no interest in penny stocks that are in monthly consolidation, but overall, clearly the cannabis sector is having a better month than psychedelics. Again, I just keep one eye on psychedelics, knowing that at some point there will be a FOMO euphoria run where there will be significant opportunity to make gains as a bull, but it's not a buy and hold for me. It's just to patiently wait for the signs that that momentum is there or the headline that triggers that. So overall, good few weeks for the bulls. Don't be surprised if we tighten up. Watch IWM. Keep an eye out for headline news. If we get the news, we're going to get halts and gap ups. We have a playbook. Watch what HHS News did, because that same thing will happen. And if it happens pre-market, it's going to be really hard to get shares because things are really illiquid. And the OTC names would just gap up big that day. So establish a game plan for if the headline drops, and ideally it drops during regular trading hours when you're sitting right at the computer and you can act on it in the first few minutes. And I know that in our chat room, we're going to have we will be alerting everybody with channel-wide alerts when that news does drop. Otherwise, feel free to ask any questions. Thanks for the likes and the shares and the support. And we will continue to keep an eye on the sector as it tries to put in a longer-term bottom.